The auditorium falls silent. 200 children sit cross-legged on the polished gymnasium floor, their whispers fading into expectant stillness. On stage, a red velvet curtain hangs motionless, hiding whatever surprise the principal promised would make this assembly unforgettable. But in the third row, 7-year-old Emma fidgets with the hem of her yellow dress, the same dress she wore 6 months ago when Daddy's taxi disappeared around the corner, taking him to a place called deployment that she still can't pronounce correctly. Her small fingers trace the fabric as she stares at the curtain, unaware that behind it someone's breath is catching, someone's hands are trembling, someone's heart is beating so loud it might give away the secret that's about to change everything. The principal steps forward with a microphone. "Children, today we have a very special visitor. ... Dud." Double quotes, Emma's classmate next to her whispers excitedly about celebrities and surprise guests, but Emma's attention drifts to that red curtain. Something about the way it moves slightly, as if someone is standing just behind it, makes her stomach flutter with a feeling she can't name. She doesn't know that in 30 seconds, her world will tilt off its axis. She doesn't know that the empty chair at their kitchen table is about to be filled again. She doesn't know that behind that curtain stands the person she's been drawing in every art class, writing letters to every night, and asking God to bring home safely. All she knows is that something is about to happen, something that will make the 6 months of Daddy's working far away finally make sense. The principal's voice echoes, "Please welcome home ... Double quotes, and Emma's breath stops, even before she knows why. Emma Johnson is 7 years old, with curious brown eyes that haven't quite learned to hide disappointment yet. 6 months ago, she understood that Daddy had to go help people in a faraway country, but she didn't understand why it had to be her daddy. She didn't understand why the house would become so quiet, why Mommy would cry into her coffee cup when she thought Emma wasn't looking. Staff Sergeant Michael Johnson, 34, deployed to Afghanistan in March with the promise that he'd be home before you know it. Princess. But time moves differently when you're 7. 6 months feels like forever when you're measuring it in bedtime stories never told, soccer games never cheered, and piggyback rides that exist only in memory. Their house on Maple Street still bears the marks of his presence. His coffee mug sits unwashed in the kitchen sink. Mommy can't bring herself to clean it. Emma's drawings cover the refrigerator. Stick figures of a man in uniform holding hands with a little girl, both smiling under a yellow sun that she colors extra bright because Daddy likes sunshine. In Emma's bedroom, on her nightstand, sits a framed photograph from last Christmas. Daddy's wearing his dress uniform, and she's on his shoulders, both of them laughing at something just outside the camera's view. Next to the photo is a small wooden jewelry box he made for her 6th birthday, shaped like a treasure chest. Inside, she keeps every letter he's sent, written in his careful handwriting. "Dear Princess Emma, Daddy misses your laugh more than all the stars in the sky." Her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, has watched Emma change over these months. The little girl who once raised her hand eagerly for every question now sometimes stares out the window during reading time. When classmates talk about weekend plans with their fathers, Emma becomes very interested in her pencil eraser, rolling it between small fingers until Mrs. Henderson gently redirects the conversation. But Emma has learned to be strong, the way Mommy taught her. She hasn't cried in 3 weeks, not since the nightmare when she dreamed that Daddy forgot what her voice sounded like. She practices her spelling words extra hard because she wants to write him better letters. She helps Mommy with dishes without being asked because Daddy would be proud of his big girl. What Emma doesn't know is that yesterday at 3:47 a.m., her mother received a phone call that made her sink to her knees in their dark hallway, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of joy. Michael was coming home 2 weeks early, and he wanted to surprise his princess in the most unforgettable way possible. The plan was simple. coordinate with Emma's school for a special military appreciation assembly, let Emma think it was just another school program, and give her a moment she'd remember for the rest of her life. The mornings are the hardest. Emma has developed a ritual that breaks her mother's heart every single day. She wakes up, padding to the kitchen in her Disney princess pajamas, and automatically sets 2 bowls on the counter for breakfast. 2 spoons, 2 glasses of orange juice. It takes her a full 30 seconds to remember that Daddy isn't there to share Lucky Charms with her, that his chair will remain empty, that his coffee will stay unmade. Sarah Johnson watches from the doorway, gripping her bathrobe tighter around her waist, as her daughter quietly puts 1 bowl back in the cabinet. The sound of ceramic against wood has become the soundtrack of their grief. "Mommy, is today the day Daddy comes home?" Emma asks every morning, the same question that has echoed through their house for 183 days. And every morning, Sarah kneels down to Emma's eye level, smooths her daughter's sleep-tousled hair, and says, "Not today, sweetheart, but soon." The word soon has lost all meaning. It stretches like taffy, sweet but ultimately empty. The walls of their home have become a gallery of waiting. Emma's artwork has evolved over the months. Her first drawings showed Daddy coming home tomorrow, with stick figures holding hands under rainbow skies. By month 3, the drawings grew more detailed. Daddy in his uniform, standing at their front door, his face always smiling, but his eyes sometimes colored with the wrong crayon, because Emma couldn't quite remember if they were green or hazel. Now, in month 6, her drawings have changed again. She draws their family of 3, but Daddy is always smaller, sometimes translucent, as if her memory of him is fading like an old photograph left in sunlight. She doesn't know she's doing this. She just knows that drawing him feels harder now, like trying to remember a dream after you've been awake too long. The bedtime routine has become sacred and torturous. Every night, Emma insists on calling Daddy through the computer screen, the pixels and delayed connection making him feel both close and impossibly far away. She presses her small palm against the screen when he says, "Good night." And sometimes Sarah catches her talking to the blank computer after the call ends, whispering secrets to the darkness, as if he might still be listening somewhere in the electronic void. "Dadder, I lost another tooth today," she told the empty screen last Tuesday. "I put it under my pillow, but the tooth fairy didn't come. Maybe she can't find our house without you here to help her." Sarah has learned to cry silently in the shower, in the car after dropping Emma at school, in the grocery store aisle when she accidentally reaches for Michael's favorite cereal. She's memorized the weight of loneliness, how it sits differently in her chest at 3 a.m. than it does at dinner time. She's become fluent in the language of military wives, the careful optimism, the shared understanding in their eyes when they meet at the commissary. The way they don't ask, "How are you holding up?" because they already know the answer. The neighborhood has rallied around them in that peculiar way small communities do during deployments. Mrs. Martinez brings casseroles every Thursday, always in dishes that don't need to be returned because she understands that Sarah barely has energy to feed her daughter, let alone wash extra dishes. Mr. Peterson mows their lawn without being asked, and the sound of his lawnmower every Saturday morning has become strangely comforting, a reminder that the world keeps turning, that someone is taking care of the things Michael would do if he were home. But it's the small moments that cut deepest. When Emma's bike chain comes loose and she automatically runs toward the garage, calling Daddy, before remembering he's not there to fix it. When she finds one of his books on the nightstand and carries it around the house for 3 days, sleeping with it under her pillow because it still smells faintly like his cologne. When she practices riding her bike in the driveway, talking to herself, "Look, Daddy, no hands. Are you proud of me? Can you see me from where you are?" The calendar on their kitchen wall is marked with red X's, each day crossed off like a prison sentence being served. Emma counts them every morning. 183 days. "Mommy, that's a really big number, isn't it?" Sarah nods, not trusting her voice to remain steady. She doesn't tell Emma that she's been crossing off days on a hidden calendar in her bedroom drawer calendar. That counts, not just the days. Michael has been gone, but the days until his projected return date, a date that feels both concrete and mythical, like believing in Christmas when you're too old for Santa Claus. Tonight is different, though Sarah can't let it show. Tonight, she knows that tomorrow will break the cycle. Tomorrow, Emma won't set 2 bowls on the counter and remember to put one back. Tomorrow, the red X's will stop and their life will begin to breathe again. 7,000 miles away, in a dusty military compound where the sun never seems to set gently, Staff Sergeant Michael Johnson sits on the edge of his narrow cot, holding a photograph that's been folded and unfolded so many times the creases have become white scars across his daughter's face. It's 11:47 p.m. in Afghanistan, which means it's 2:17 p.m. back home, right about the time Emma would be in Mrs. Henderson's classroom, learning fractions or practicing cursive letters that spell out words like family and hope. His footlocker sits open beside him, revealing the careful archaeology of a father's love. 43 letters from Emma, arranged chronologically, showing the evolution of her handwriting from shaky block letters to the confident cursive she's so proud of. A small teddy bear wearing a miniature army uniform that she sent him for Father's Day. Its fur, now dusty from the Afghan desert, but still smelling faintly of her strawberry shampoo. A Mother's Day card she made for Sarah, but sent to him too, because Daddy needs to know Mommy is okay. Michael has read every letter so many times he can recite them from memory. Her latest one arrived just 3 days ago, breaks his heart and fills it simultaneously. "Dear Daddy, I learned to ride my bike without training wheels. I fell down 7 times, but I got back up because you always tell me. Johnsons are brave. I wanted to call you to tell you, but Mummy said you were sleeping because your morning is our nighttime. I hope you're having good dreams about us." He traces the crayon drawing that accompanies the letter, their family holding hands in front of their house. But this time she's drawn herself bigger, almost as tall as Sarah. His little girl is growing up in his absence, and the thought sits in his chest like a stone he can't swallow. The nights are when the guilt comes visiting, when the compound grows quiet and his fellow soldiers retreat to their own private wars with homesickness. Michael lies on his back and stares at the metal ceiling, counting the weeks since he heard Emma's laugh in real time instead of through a crackling video call that cuts out at the worst moments. He's missed her first loose tooth, her first school play where she was a sunflower in the spring production. He's missed the way she says spaghetti. She still can't get the pronunciation right. And he's terrified that by the time he gets home, she'll have learned to say it correctly, and he'll have missed that small magic forever. His sergeant buddies think he's crazy for how often he calls home. "Johnson, you talk to your family more than my wife talks to her mother." They joke, but Michael doesn't care. Those pixelated video calls are his lifeline, even when the connection is so bad that Emma becomes a series of frozen smiles, and Sarah's voice arrives 3 seconds after her lips move. He's learned to read Emma's moods through bad wifey, the way she fidgets when she's trying not to cry, how she holds her favorite stuffed animal just outside the camera frame when she's feeling brave for Daddy. But yesterday, everything changed. Yesterday, Colonel Martinez called him into the office with news that made Michael's knees nearly buckle. His deployment was being cut short. Mission accomplished. Rotation complete. Time to go home 2 weeks early. Michael had stared at the paperwork, his ticket home, until the letters blurred together, and he had to excuse himself to call Sarah with shaking hands. "I want to surprise her," he told Sarah through tears he didn't try to hide. "I want to give her something perfect, something she'll never forget." And that's when Sarah mentioned the school assembly, the perfect cover for the perfect surprise. Now, 24 hours later, Michael sits in a transport plane somewhere over the Atlantic, his duffel bag clutched between his knees, watching clouds drift past the small window like the days he's missed at home. His uniform is pressed, his boots are polished, and in his pocket is a small wooden heart he carved during the long desert nights, a matching piece to the jewelry box he made Emma for her birthday, something to remind her that even when Daddy was far away, his heart was always with her. He thinks about the moment when the curtain pulls back, when Emma's eyes will find his across that crowded auditorium. He wonders if she'll recognize him immediately, or if she need a moment to believe what she's seeing. He wonders if she's grown so much that his arms won't fit around her the same way, if her voice has changed, if she'll be shy with him at first, but mostly he wonders if he'll be able to speak when he sees her, or if the 6 months of missing her will come pouring out in tears that no amount of military training could have prepared him for. In 8 hours, he'll find out. In 8 hours, the man who's been strong for his unit, who's kept his composure through mortar attacks and sandstorms and the daily grind of deployment, will become simply Emma's daddy again. He's never been more terrified or more ready for anything in his life. Morning arrives at the Johnson house with unusual electricity. Sarah wakes before her alarm, her heart hammering against her ribs like a bird desperate to escape its cage. Today is the day she's been dreaming about for 6 months. But now that it's here, she's paralyzed by the weight of keeping the secret. One wrong word, one misplaced smile, and Emma will sense something is different. She practices normal in the bathroom mirror. "Good morning, sweetheart. Ready for school?" Her reflection looks back with eyes that are too bright, a smile that trembles at the edges. She tries again, forcing her voice into the familiar rhythm of every other morning for the past 183 days. Downstairs, Emma follows her usual routine with mechanical precision. 2 bowls from the cabinet. The pause, the quiet clink as she returns 1 bowl to its place. Sarah watches from the kitchen doorway, knowing this is the last time she witnessed this heartbreaking ritual, and the knowledge makes her throat close with unshed tears. "Mommy, you look different today," Emma observes, spooning Lucky Charms into her mouth. "Your eyes look like they do when you have a secret." Sarah's heart stops. What kind of secret could Mommy have? Emma shrugs, already losing interest. "Maybe you're planning a surprise party, but it's not my birthday until December, so probably not." She returns to her cereal, and Sarah breathes again. At Pinewood Elementary, the morning buzzes with an energy that has nothing to do with the usual Monday lethargy. Principal Matthews moves through the hallways with purposeful steps, checking and double-checking details with the kind of precision usually reserved for state inspections. In the gymnasium, Custodian Bob arranges folding chairs in perfect rows, whistling softly under his breath. He's been here for 17 years, has seen dozens of assemblies, but this one feels different. This one has a secret weight to it. Mrs. Henderson notices Emma's distraction immediately. During morning math, Emma stares out the window more than usual, her pencil tracing absent circles on her worksheet. When called upon to answer what 7 times 8 equals, Emma blinks like someone waking from a dream. 56, she says automatically, but her voice sounds far away. "Is everything all right, sweetheart?" Mrs. Henderson asks gently. Emma nods, but her eyes drift back to the window. "I had a weird dream last night. Daddy was here, but he was hiding behind something red, and there were lots of people clapping, but I couldn't see why." She pauses, frowning. "Do you think dreams can come true, Mrs. Henderson?" Mrs. Henderson, who received a carefully worded email from Principal Matthews this morning, has to clear her throat before answering. "Sometimes they do. Emma, sometimes they do." Across town, at the small regional airport, Michael's plane touches down at 10:23 a.m. His hands shake as he turns on his phone, immediately flooded with texts from Sarah. The assembly is at 2 p.m. Emma has no idea. She's wearing the yellow dress, the one from your going away day. I love you. We're ready. The yellow dress. Michael closes his eyes and remembers. Emma insisting on wearing her sunshine dress to wave goodbye at the airport. Her small hand pressed against the terminal window as his plane pulled away. The symbolism isn't lost on Himi's daughter wearing the same dress for Hala that she wore for goodbye, as if she's been waiting in that exact moment for 6 months. Bikets kol lunch passas. In a blur of excited whispers, the children know something special is happening. There's been talk of a surprise assembly all morning, but the adults move around them with conspiratorial smiles and sealed lips. Emma picks at her peanut butter sandwich, her appetite stolen by a feeling she can't name. It's like Christmas morning butterflies, but she doesn't know why. At 1:30 p.m., the students begin filing into the gymnasium. Emma takes her usual spot in the third row, cross-legged on the polished floor, her yellow dress spread around her like flower petals. The red curtain hangs at the front of the stage, and she finds her eyes drawn to it repeatedly. There's something about the way it hangs not quite still, as if someone is moving behind it. Behind that curtain, Michael stands in his dress blues, the fabric crisp against his skin, his hands clasped behind his back in a position that's become second nature after 14 years of service. But his military bearing can't hide the fact that his heart is beating so hard, he's sure the children in the front row can hear it. Principal Matthews stands beside him, occasionally checking his watch. 2 minutes, Sergeant, he whispers. Michael nods, not trusting his voice. In his pocket, his fingers find the small wooden heart, smooth from his nervous touch. He thinks about all the times he's imagined this moment during those long desert nights. What he'll say, how he'll move, whether he'll be able to hold back tears long enough to see Emma's face clearly. In the audience, Emma shifts restlessly. Something feels different about today. Something she can't put her finger on. The air itself seems charged, like the moments before a thunderstorm when the sky holds its breath. She glances around at her classmates, but they seem normal, excited about missing class time, whispering about what the surprise might be. Mrs. Henderson caps Emma sigh from her position along the wall and offers a small smile. There's something knowing in her teacher's expression, something that makes Emma's stomach flutter with anticipation and confusion. Principal Matthews steps to the microphone, and the gymnasium falls silent, except for the distant hum of fluorescent lights and the subtle creak of the building settling. 200 children look up at him expectantly. But Emma feels like he's speaking directly to her when he says, "Children, today we have a very special visitor. Someone who has been serving our country far from home. Someone who represents the bravery and sacrifice of all our military families." Emma's breath her mind races through possibilities, but she pushes them away because hope is a dangerous thing when you've been disappointed before. Behind the curtain, she hears the smallest shuffle of movement, sees the fabric shift almost Please join me in welcoming home a true American hero. ... Double quotes, time slows. Emma's heartbeat fills her ears like ocean waves. The red curtain seems to glow under the gymnasium lights, and she realizes she's holding her breath, waiting for something that might change everything. Principal Matthews' hand moves toward the curtain rope, and Emma's world balances on the edge of transformation. The curtain falls away like a red waterfall, pooling at the base of the stage in velvet waves. For a heartbeat that stretches into eternity, the gymnasium exists in perfect silence, the kind of silence that comes before miracles, before the universe shifts on its axis and rearranges everything you thought you knew about possible. And there he stands, Staff Sergeant Michael Johnson in his dress blue uniform, ribbons catching the fluorescent light like small promises kept, his cover tucked precisely under his left arm in a gesture so familiar it makes Emma's breath stop completely. He looks exactly like her drawings, and nothing like them at the same time, more real than memory, more present than the pixelated video calls that have sustained her for 6 months. But it's his eyes that break her. Those green hazel eyes she could never quite get right with her crayons are looking directly at her, finding her in a sea of 200 children, as if she's the only person who has ever existed. His face, the face she's traced in photographs, until her fingertips memorized every line, crumples with an emotion so raw it seems to echo off the gymnasium walls. Emma's world tilts. The polished floor beneath her seems to disappear, and she's floating in a space between disbelief and desperate hope. Her mouth opens, but no sound comes out. All the words she's saved up for 6 months have evaporated like morning dew. "Daddy." The word is barely a whisper, lost in the vastness of the gymnasium, but Michael hears it like thunder. That single syllable, spoken in the voice he's carried in his heart through desert storms and lonely nights, shatters every wall he's built to keep himself together. The children around Emma sit frozen, their young minds processing something they know is monumentally important but don't fully understand. Some of them gasp, some begin to whisper, but Emma exists in a bubble of silence where only she and her father breathe. Michael takes his first step down from the stage, then another, and suddenly he's not walking, he's nearly running, his military composure abandoned completely as he moves toward his daughter with the desperation of a man who has been drowning and finally sees shore. Emma scrambles to her feet, her yellow dress tangling around her legs in her haste. Her small hands reach out instinctively, the same gesture she's made toward the computer screen during their video calls. But this time there's no cold glass between them, just air and possibility, and the closing distance of 6 months' worth of longing. "Princess!" Michael's voice breaks on the word, and suddenly he's kneeling on the gymnasium floor in his perfect dress blues, his arms opening wide, his face streaked with tears he doesn't try to hide. "My beautiful princess, Daddy's home." Emma launches herself across the remaining space between them like a small bird finally finding her nest. The impact of her small body against his chest nearly knocks him backward, but he catches her, always catches her, his arms closing around her with a completeness that makes the world feel right again for the first time in 183 days. She smells like strawberry shampoo and childhood and home. She feels bigger in his arms, taller, stronger, but still perfectly, undeniably, his little girl. Her face buries against his neck, and he feels her tears soaking through his uniform, warm and real and more precious than any medal he's ever earned. "I missed you so much." Dadded Emma sobs against his shoulder, her words muffled but clear enough to stop his heart. "I counted every day, 183 days. That's such a big number." "I know, Princess." No. Michael's voice is rough with emotion as he pulls back just enough to see her face, his hands framing her cheeks like she's made of something fragile and irreplaceable. "But I'm here, now. Daddy's here, now. And I'm never going away like that again." Emma's eyes much like his own search, his face with the intensity of someone making sure this isn't another dream. Her small fingers trace the ribbons on his uniform, the same way she used to explore his face when she was a baby. "Are you real?" she whispers, and the question breaks something fundamental in Michael's chest. Instead of answering with words, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the small wooden heart, placing it in her palm. "I carved this for you every night I was away. Feel how warm it is. That's because it carries all the love I couldn't give you in person." Emma stares at the heart, her tears falling onto the smooth wood. "It matches my treasure box." "That's right, baby girl. So even when Daddy was far away, you always had a piece of my heart with you." Around them, the gymnasium has erupted into a symphony of emotion. Children are crying without understanding why. Teachers are dabbing at their eyes with and parents who came to help with the assembly are reaching for their phones to capture A moment that feels too sacred to be photographed, but too beautiful not to preserve. But Emma and Michael exist in their own universe, a sphere of reunion where time moves differently, and love is a tangible thing that fills the space between them. She climbs into his lap, settling against him with the confidence of someone reclaiming their rightful place in the world. "I learned to ride my bike without training wheels," she tells him, her voice still shaky with tears, but gaining strength with each word. "I fell down 7 times, but I got back up because Johnsons are brave." Michael laughs through his tears, the sound echoing off the gymnasium walls like music. "That's my girl. I'm so proud of you, princess. I'm proud of how brave you've been, how strong you've been for Mommy. Can you come to my next soccer game? It's on Saturday. I'm getting better at kicking the ball straight. I'll be at every game from now on," Michael promises, his forehead resting against hers. "Every game, every school play, every bedtime story." "Daddy's not going anywhere." Emma pulls back to look at him seriously, her small hands still clutching the wooden heart. "Promise? I promise. Princess Emma, cross my heart and hope to fly." It's their special phrase, the one he whispered to her every night before bed, the one that means promises are unbreakable and love is forever. Emma smiles, then the first real smile Michael has seen from her in 6 months that isn't filtered through a computer screen, and it's like watching the sun rise. After the longest night of his life, the applause begins slowly, building like a wave until the entire gymnasium thunders with a sound of 200 people celebrating love's triumph over distance, time, and all the things that try to keep families apart. But Emma and Michael barely hear it. The applause begins slowly, building like a wave until the entire gymnasium thunders with the sound of 200 people celebrating love's triumph over distance, time, and all the things that try to keep families apart. But Emma and Michael barely hear it. They're too busy being home. Later, when the gymnasium has emptied and the custodians have swept away the tissues left behind by crying teachers, when the social media posts have been shared and the photos have been texted to grandparents across the country, the true magnitude of this moment settles into something quieter, but no less profound. Emma rides home between her parents in the car, her small hand never leaving her father's larger one, the wooden heart clutched in her other palm like a talisman against future separations. She chatters constantly 6 months of stored conversations, pouring out in a torrent of words about loose teeth and soccer goals, and the hamster in Mrs. Henderson's classroom who learned to run backward on his wheel. Michael listens to every word with the intensity of someone who has been starving and is finally being fed. He memorizes the way she pronounces spaghetti, still wrong, and he's grateful he didn't miss that particular magic. The gap where her tooth used to be, the way her voice gets higher when she's excited. These are the sounds he dreamed about in the desert silence, the voice that carried him through the hardest days of deployment. Sarah watches them in the rear-view mirror, her heart simultaneously full and healing. For 6 months, she's been both mother and father, drill sergeant and comforter, the sole keeper of their family's emotional equilibrium. Now, seeing Michael's hand smoothing Emma's hair while she talks, seeing Emma's face lit up with joy that no video call could contain, Sarah feels a weight she didn't even realize she was carrying finally lift from her shoulders. That evening, the Johnson house on Maple Street breathes differently. The silence that has lived in their walls for 183 days has been replaced by something warm and alive. Michael's coffee mug sits in the sink, not unwashed from memory, but dirty from this morning's actual coffee. Emma sets 3 plates on the table for dinner without thinking, then stops and grins when she realizes what she's done. "I don't have to put one back," she announces with wonder, as if she's discovered magic. During dinner, Emma insists on sitting in Michael's lap instead of her own chair, and no one suggests otherwise. She feeds him bites of spaghetti and tells him about every drawing on the refrigerator, narrating 6 months of her life in watercolor and crayon. Michael holds her close and pretends his eyes aren't filling with tears when she explains how she drew him getting smaller in the pictures because it was getting harder to remember exactly what you look like. "But now I can look at you whenever I want," she says, pressing her small palm against his cheek, "and draw you exactly right." Bedtime becomes a celebration instead of a routine. For the first time in 6 months, Emma doesn't need to say goodnight to a computer screen. Instead, Michael carries her upstairs on his shoulders, her laughter echoing through the house like music that's been missing from their symphony. As he tucks her into bed, Emma looks up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, when you were gone, I used to pretend you were here. I would tell you about my day, even though you couldn't hear me. Did you know?" Michael's throat tightens. "I did know, Princess. And I talked to you too, even when we weren't on the computer. I told you about the stars I could see, and I asked you to help me be brave. Did it work? Every time. You made me brave every single day." Emma nods solemnly, then "Can you tell me a story? A real story, not through the computer." And so Michael tells her about a little princess who was so brave and strong that she helped her daddy fight dragons from thousands of miles away, just by being wonderful. Emma falls asleep to his voice, not delayed or but real and present, and right there in her room, and Michael stays beside her bed long after her breathing evens out, watching her sleep and marveling at how something as simple as being in the same physical space can feel like the greatest miracle he's ever witnessed. Downstairs, Sarah waits for him with 2 cups of coffee and tears in her eyes. They sit together on their couch, not talking, just being together, and Michael realizes that coming home isn't just about returning to a place. It's about remembering who you are when you're complete, when all the pieces of your heart are in the same zip code. The calendar on their kitchen wall still hangs with its red X's, marking 183 days of separation. But tomorrow, Sarah will replace it with a new calendar, one that counts forward instead of backward, one that marks soccer games and parent-teacher conferences and family dinners and all the ordinary, extraordinary moments of a life lived together. Some stories end with dramatic gestures and grand declarations. This one ends with something simpler and infinitely more powerful: a family eating breakfast together the next morning, Emma chattering about her dreams while Michael helps her with her math homework, and Sarah watches from the doorway, no longer practicing normal in the mirror, because normal has finally come home to stay. Because love isn't just about the big moments, the tearful reunions, and dramatic surprises. Love lives in the daily rituals, in the 2 bowls that become 3, in the bedtime stories told in person, in the simple miracle of being ordinary together. And sometimes, after 183 days of waiting, ordinary is the most extraordinary thing of all. If this story of love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds of family touched your heart, subscribe to witness more moments that remind us why some waits are worth every single day. Because every military family has a story, and every homecoming is a miracle wrapped in a uniform and delivered with a parent's love.